Hi, welcome back to DJFonts tutorials. Today I'm going to demystify the process of customizing a font and saving a new font. I'm going to use as an example some of the preset DJ fonts that we provide in 3 different font families, and I'm going to go from the standard look, the parent look if you will, and create one of the preset looks that we provide for you, just to show you what the possibilities are for creating new fonts and what kind of techniques we used so that you can get started on your own. The first font we're going to create is this retro forward font, and we're going to use the all layers font from the brushed metal font family. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off some of these layers that we're not going to use. We don't need the glass on top, we don't need the beveled edge, we don't need the reflection, or the outline, or the hotspot. So now we're just left with 4 different layers, and we're going to use those as well as some of the ones that were already turned off, like the flat base. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fill texture here, and if you'll notice, this fill texture layer has already got a texture fill applied to it from within our library, but I'm going to use one of the textures that's provided with this font family called Beehive Railing. And that's just almost like a chicken wire type texture. But to make it interesting, I'm going to change the blending mode up here to cut through all below. And what that does is it knocks out the layers beneath, all the layers below it, so that you see the background behind it. Next I'm going to take this fill texture layer, which is the gradation of gray to nothing, basically, and I'm going to add some effects to that layer. First I'm going to offset, so I'm going to move the layer, I'm going to shift it to the right approximately 113 or so, and then I'm going to shift it down about the same amount. And what we're seeing here is a kind of inner shadow type effect starting to appear. Now I'm also going to add a brightness contrast effect to that layer. I'm just going to bump up the contrast of that gradient. Not too much, just around 20. Just so it's not quite as smooth, it's a little more dramatic. And that's going to be staying in normal blending mode. I'll just click that layer closed. Now this flat base, it's just plain black at the moment, but what we're going to do is we're going to fill it with a color, turn it on because it wasn't on in the all layers file, and I'm going to use fill, and I'm going to choose a nice bright orange color. And then once that comes in, I'm also going to add an offset to this layer, and I'm going to shift this to the left slightly, just about -20, and I'm going to shift it up about the same amount. Now there's a couple of small steps we still need to do. That outline layer needs to be turned back on. That got turned off accidentally. And both the outline and the depth layers, we're going to put those in to cut through all below blending mode as well. So they're going to knock out everything beneath them. This is going to give us a little bit more see-through effect on this font. And there is the font exactly as it was in the custom preset that we offered you. So as you can see, it really didn't take too much. It's just a combination of cutting through to the background and adding a texture fill and doing a little bit of offset, so you get that kind of 3D-ish effect without actually doing 3D. Next we're going to move on to the circuit board font, and the default look for this circuit board font is this green circuit board with a sort of a neon glowing outline. And we're going to show you how to create this preset look called ball scores, which is a very different look for the same letter shape. It's got 3 layers that appear to be separated in 3D space. So we're going to go back to all layers, and once we look at the layers over here, there's a lot that we're not going to need. And so we're going to start off just by turning off those layers that we don't need. Anything to do with the circuits we're not going to be using, as well as the second outline. We are, however, going to turn on this second shaded base layer, which contains the texture fill effect. And we're going to change that texture fill from circuit 2 to spherical matrix. And then we're also going to add a fill effect, and we're going to fill those balls in that layer with a bright red. Next we need to go to the shaded base, and this we're going to offset away from the balls. So we're going to need an offset effect, and we're going to shift it to the left about -40 and down about 40. We're also going to add a texture fill in this layer, so we don't want that green color that we've got there currently. And the texture fill that we're going to use, the texture is called green stripes. Now these are all textures that come with the font family. You can use your own texture or browse through the whole library in the collection to add your own texture. Okay, so we've got the green stripes. Now the final thing I need to do on this layer is I'm going to add a hue saturation effect, and I'm going to change that green to a blue. So I'm just going to shift my dial to the right here, approximately 125. And I'm also going to lower my saturation just a little bit and make it a little bit darker. Okay, that's it for that layer. Now we're going to come up to this outline layer, and that needs also an offset effect. We're going to shift it up and to the right so that the balls remain floating in the center between the blue background and the outline. So in order to shift it up, we're going to go to the right on the first value to about 40, 43. And then on the second value, to get it to go up, we're going to go negative the same basic amount, -43. So now you see that outline is kind of floating up above. Now because these are our letters are now taking up more space, I'm just going to reduce the size a little bit. And then I'm going to increase the tracking slightly so we can see the letters better. And there's one final thing I need to do to that outline layer. I'm going to do a tri-colorize so that I have something that matches my colors a little better instead of this neon outline. I'm going to colorize with white in my highlights, but I'm going to shift the midtones to a nice light greenish blue. and then my shadows to a darker grayish, greenish blue. Lighten that center color up a little bit. So now we've got that outline looking a little more subdued and matching the colors better. So let's go and compare to what the preset looked like. As you can see, we're only using 3 of the layers in the all layers font. And there you have it. It looks pretty close. Maybe the outline's a little bit lighter, but that's something you can just tweak very easily. So if we wanted to go back here and tweak that outline, go even lighter with this middle font, this middle color, and a little bit lighter with our dark color as well. And there it is. So that really didn't take too long to create a completely different look from that font. Now the third and final font that we're going to look at is the Spring Fun font. And if you look here at the full all layers version of the Spring Fun font, this is the parent look. This is how it was designed, and then we added extra layers for customization purposes. And this is one of the presets that we provide you as one of the standard fonts in the font family. It's called Red, White, and Bluesy. Now as you can see, the Red, White, and Bluesy font has a bigger outline and the colors are totally changed, and it also has a little bit more of a distressed look to it through the combination of textures, but it's still using quite a few layers. So let's go back over here to the all layers font and I'll show you how we came up with that. Okay, we're back here in the all layers font, and we're going to get rid of what we don't need. We're not going to be using the flowers or the green garden. The glass is already turned off, we don't need that. We are going to use the color base layer that has a texture fill effect applied. And we are going to turn on the thick base at the bottom to give that bigger outline. Now let's start at the bottom here with that thick base. Open it up, and instead of green, we're going to fill that with a bright red, but just a little bit darker. Next I'm going to come here to this base color, which is a kind of a light blue, and I'm going to add a fill effect to that layer. And I'm going to select a blue that's a little bit darker, more of a medium to dark blue. Now this isn't the only way you can achieve that. I could have used hue and saturation to make that blue darker. I could have done a simple colorize. There's a lot of different ways to achieve the same purposes in these fonts. Next I'm going to come here to this color base, and I'm going to change the texture fill from Flower Parade to Vineyard. I want the colors to be a bit more muted. I want them to fade into the blue a little bit more. So I'm going to add a hue saturation effect. And I'm going to reduce the saturation right down to -100. So it'll be shades of gray. Just on those leaves in the background that are giving you that little bit of texture on top of the blue. And moving up, we're going to go to the swirls layer, which is these blue swirls that are through the middle of the letters. And I'm going to change the blending mode of those to cut through all below. So we're going to see the background through those. So if we're on a blue background, we'll see the blue. If we're on white, we'll see white. And it just adds a little bit of drama to it. I'll show you here if we put it on a different color. Let's say we put it on a bright red. or even a bright yellow. You'll see it makes it blend with the background a little bit, and it also adds a very graphic treatment. So let's go back to the blue background we had before. And the final touch that I need to do on this is I'm going to change those yellow strokes at the top to a little bit more of a golden yellow. So I'm going to add a fill effect again. I can use the fill effect on these elements because they're quite graphic already, and so I'm not losing any gradation of color. So I'm going to choose something a little bit more golden for the yellow here. And that's it. That's our red, white, and bluesy font, exactly as it's provided to you on the disc. So as you can see, there really isn't a lot of complicated stuff in creating these fonts. It's just a matter of turning on and off some of the layers and playing with the blending modes, playing with the effects that you can add to colorize or to add textures. And really in creating these, myself and the development team just had fun and created what we thought looked good, and that's what you've ended up with in your standard fonts. So they are really a jumping point for you to create your own. So I hope I see some of those custom fonts that you're creating in the future, and in the next tutorial I'll see you again. Take care.